Welcome to Invista Experts on Demand, your unbiased, informative source for supply chain best practices and industry updates. Today we are speaking to Michael Falls, Manager, Client Services, on the topic of getting the most out of a transportation audit and visibility provider. Thanks for joining us today.
Thank you. I'm glad to be here.
What should every shipper ask of their audit, payment, and visibility provider?
Since the inception of transportation audit, shippers have wanted to know, how can you save me money? But that's really just the baseline question these days, because it's a given that every shipper should be able to get out of their audit vendor an audit that is knocked out of the park. What they really want to be able to ask at this point is, can you provide me with a comprehensive audit that's going to be able to ensure that not only are my rates being accurately reviewed, but are every accessorial across all modes that I'm shipping, and that includes everything from small parcel, truckload, LTL, white glove, courier, ocean, air, every eligible mode that a shipper might be using. Can you audit every single nook and cranny of my spend? That's still the baseline, but what's becoming more and more important to shippers is, can you also provide me with the sort of financial reporting that allows my financial group to automate their weekly and monthly processes? Can you provide me with transportation reporting that allows me to optimize my network? And can you provide me with the kind of carrier scorecarding that allows me to improve my carrier relationships? Essentially, they want to be armed with the kind of data that allows them to make good business decisions across all components of their transportation and financial operations. These days, they also want their audit provider to be able to provide bill pay services so that they can outsource their bill pay components as well.
What do cost savings, transportation reporting, and financial reporting really entail?
Cost savings still starts with a great audit. A shipper still needs for their audit provider to perform a rate audit, to perform accessorial audits across all of the different accessorials that they might see in all of their different transportation modes. But more and more, shippers are relying on their audit providers to provide the sort of soft savings that allow the shipper to maximize their own activities internally. The shippers want their audit providers to perform GL coding, to perform transportation KPI reporting, and to perform the kind of comprehensive financial month-end reporting that allow them to shift those activities to the audit provider, because at the end of the day, the audit provider has all of the data available to perform those activities internally. They just need to have the robust enough reporting capabilities to do it. Transportation reporting is also becoming a baseline expectation for shippers. They want the kind of KPI reporting really at their fingertips via ad hoc reports and dashboards that allow them to make business decisions that align with their own business needs. They need service level analysis and zone analysis. They need to be able to compare their build weight versus their actual weight. They need for the reporting to be at the lane level so they can analyze each of their lanes individually. And they need for that data to align with their own business needs. And that means it has to be in that shipper's language. If the shipper has multiple brands or is shipping from multiple locations or has multiple business units or channels of spend, they need for their own transportation language to be integrated into the audit provider's reporting tools so that they can report in alignment with their own KPIs. Frequently what that means is that an order or load match needs to be integrated, so data needs to be sourced from an OMS or a WMS or a TMS or even an ERP to get the kind of supplemental data that the carriers can't provide. Financial reporting is the kind of additional value add that shippers are really starting to ask of their audit vendors. At the end of the day, they want for their audit provider to be able to GL code each shipment, sometimes at the split cost allocation level. And that means that the data that's being integrated from a WMS or an ERP needs to be matched in conjunction with the carrier provided data so the cost allocation can occur at an order level or a container level or a SKU level. After the GL coding happens, shippers are starting to expect that their audit providers can actually pay the bills to each of the carriers and then provide weekly payment reports that allow their AP teams to perform all of the analysis and GL coding on their end. And then from a monthly perspective, shippers are starting to expect that not only are they getting their paid data, but also an accrual component that allows all of the monthly financial reporting involved in transportation spend to come directly from their audit provider. The shipper is going to maximize their value if they view their relationship with an audit provider as a partnership. If the shipper wants the kind of robust KPI reporting and comprehensive financial reporting that an audit provider should be able to give that shipper, then they're going to need to provide the implementation resources in the form of a dedicated implementation team that can support all of the audit provider's needs. And if the shipper wants for the reporting to include metrics that are aligned with their business's own KPIs and reporting needs, then it's likely that there's going to need to be a data source that's integrated via a TMS, an OMS, WMS, or an ERP. And that can get tricky because it's always a matter of good data in, good data out. And if it's garbage in, it's also going to be garbage out. So it's a matter of ensuring from the front end that the shipper is able to provide the data that's necessary to provide the kind of downstream reporting that shipper needs. And if they don't, then it's going to be a process of the audit provider helping the shipper clean up that data before they commit to providing the KPI reporting.
And finally, what is required to implement a comprehensive financial reporting solution?
Comprehensive financial reporting is typically the last piece of an audit implementation. The audit services, of course, have to be ready from day one to go live. That's the core service offering. The transportation service framework should also be in place because any audit provider worth their salt has the transportation reporting system in place to be able to provide the sorts of service level and zone analysis that a shipper needs from day one. But from a financial perspective, it can be a little muddier to get up and running. Number one, there's the data integration component from an ERP or a WMS. And getting that just right is the only way to ensure that the downstream reporting is sophisticated enough to align with a shipper's financial needs. But the other piece is ensuring that the audit provider has the entire framework to provide a complete transportation and financial reporting picture. What I mean by that is that most audit providers will tell you that a comprehensive financial report includes paid volume and invoiced volume that has not been yet paid for a given shipment period. But that's not really the complete picture of a company's transportation spend. A complete transportation spend picture includes also that segment that has been planned but hasn't yet been invoiced. And so the key is getting the data from the client side to ensure that the audit provider can give you a snapshot of the shipments that you still have to accrue for a given reporting period. And that's not as simple as providing just the volume that's been planned but not yet invoiced. It's also being able to rate that volume based on the data that's available. And that means having access to data about lanes, weights, zones, any information that's going to be necessary to rate a shipment. The audit provider should be able to help coach a customer along in building out that process, but certainly it's one that takes more time and it shouldn't prevent an audit from going live.
Thanks for joining us for this episode of Envista Experts on Demand.